right, we are back with our tech expert, Ryan Eldridge of Nerds on Call, with more on what parents can do to cut and limit screen time for our kids. Ryan, I did want to ask you, before we get to some of your stuff that you have here, what about those people that say, well, you know, I want my kid to be tech savvy, and the more they use a computer and the more they play with their iPads, the more they will know about it?
Well, it turns out that's a perfectly valid point of view to have, but I use a calculator sometimes for simple division, but I still know how to divide. Whereas kids, if you just hand them the calculator and say, hey, figure out how to do blah, 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 they'll figure it out, but they won't know the fundamentals of how to get there.
Good point.
We were just talking about my son, he's 6, and in his school, one of his chores, one of his tasks is to sew. Sewing in school, that's kind of cool. These kind of practical life things, sometimes they lose touch in a digital age.
They really do.
But they do need to know how to do that stuff. So I would say balance everything. You want to make sure that they get an exposure to both electronics and practical life skills.
I saw this app on Facebook. It's like a math app. You just put it over the problem on the worksheet, and it does it for you. It works it out for you.
And we don't even need to translate anymore. Google Translate will do the same thing with menus or whatever when you're traveling. And now Siri will actually tell you in your ear what the other person's saying as they're saying it, so you don't have to do that anymore. So why learn another language?
That's crazy. All right, so you've got 5 tips.
Yeah, so we were just talking about kids and screen time and how 38% of kids under 2 have used some sort of cell phone or mobile device.
Crazy.
And so there are myths that go around about, well, kids and screen time. Isn't all screen time detrimental? That's myth number 1. Well, not all screen time is detrimental. We talked about educational video games and things like that. Those are perfectly fine to use. But if kids are watching television and they're watching an episode, we want to make sure that the parents get involved in the episode and then correlate what's in the episode to real life. Here's an example.
Okay.
So let's say we're watching, my 3-year-old loves Daniel Tiger, which is kind of the modern day Mr. Rogers. And so if you're watching that episode, you say, well, why did Daniel hide his toy from his friends? And then the little one will tell you, and you say, what would you do if one of your friends hid their toy? And now you're interacting with your kid about what happened on the screen rather than them just sitting there and mindlessly absorbing that stuff.
That's a great idea, and we could do that with a lot of these shows that they watch on the Nickelodeon that are a little older, you know, teenage kid shows, and they could learn a lot from a lot of life lessons on that if you help them. Okay, go on.
Well, myth number 2 is that having a TV playing in the background doesn't affect my children. So sometimes we have little toddlers or even pre-language children that are sitting and playing, and we're watching, you know, something on the television like Central Valley Today or something cool like that, and we're thinking, this is beyond them. They're not paying attention anyway. Well, kids are really tuned into their environment, and they're hearing words every now and then that they know. They're hearing a tone of voice, and it distracts them. They're playing with their blocks, and they go, what was that? And then it goes back. And this has been linked to being able to concentrate as well as cognitive use or language skills simply because of TV on in the background. So if you're not watching it or it's not kid appropriate, just turn it off and don't let the noise come from somewhere else, maybe when they throw their blocks down.
Good advice.
So myth number 3 is, I've been guilty of this before, is that kids fall asleep better to watching television. Like you'll put them in front of the TV and then a few minutes later they pass out. And you're like, awesome, this is great for kids. Well, it isn't really great for kids. It suppresses melatonin and it actually makes them less able to sleep. In fact, studies have shown that kids with televisions in their room go to bed 18 minutes later than most kids. And if they have access to a mobile device in their room, they go to sleep 37 minutes later and get 18 minutes less of sleep. They wake up 18 minutes later. Nearly an hour less of sleep every night just for our kids because of these mobile devices.
Okay, and they need all the sleep they can get.
They do.
Myth number 4.
So myth number 4, that cell phone usage by parents doesn't impact kids. Well, we just talked about that. It does. They see our behavior, they see us playing with something, and they start wanting to mess with it too. Kids as early as 1 will crawl to a cell phone because they're going, why is mom playing with that thing so much? I want to play with it too.
That makes sense.
So you want to make sure you limit your own usage of your cell phone, and if you're going to make a rule for your kids to follow it yourself so you can model the behavior. Maybe just whenever you're going into the restroom, bring your phone in there, and then they won't see it, right?
Sometimes they still get in there, you know, Ryan. Sometimes they still get in there with us. Okay,
so
number 5.
Myth number 5, interactive games or things like that are better than just watching television. So we even talked about this a couple of weeks ago. So it's perfectly true on most things. So it'd be better to sit a kid in front of Monkey Preschool Playhouse on an iPad than letting them watch SpongeBob SquarePants. But a lot of times these ebooks, they have unnecessary distractions. So if you get a Thomas the Train book, what will happen is you start reading it and you press some things and the train will make some noise or he'll make a little sound or some music will come on or the train will move. All of those things are distracting from the story and the kids have trouble following the plot. So imagine if you, as an adult, you're reading one of the greatest new thrillers out, and you're like, oh, this is so good, but every chapter you have to stop and play a quick round of Angry Birds. You would not be able to follow that plot, and there would be twists and turns. You'd be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to have to go back and read this. Well, our kids don't even have that much ability to concentrate. So if you're going to have them read and you're going to be with them while they're doing it, make sure they're interactive, but interactive appropriately, so that way they're not too distracting.
Great tips, Ryan. Thank you so very much. Nerds on Call, everybody. They're on Champlain Street, 800-919-NERD is the number. Call them if you need anything tech. Anything tech. He's your man. Thank you so much for being here, Ryan. Always great talking to you. Don't go anywhere, especially if you're hungry. The folks from Marie Callender's are here to show us how to make one of their most popular side dishes, a bacon, cheese, and avocado hasher.